Thank you. Happy to be here. How many is this your first event of this sort with CBMC? We have that in common. It is going to be for those at least, it will be the best one you've ever been to. I can guarantee that. So thrilled to be here. Really excited about this. When I was asked to do this, I jumped at the opportunity, and it's not totally my style. I'm a bit lower profile. I don't really do these things. But I was really excited. Let me tell you why I was excited and why I stepped out of my, I suppose, comfort zone to do something that I don't normally do. The foundation of my life is my relationship with Christ. Everything that I am, everything I do builds off of that foundation. And I'm going to tell you how that foundation was challenged in a little bit. The story of Job in the Bible, many of you know, and it's a super important story. The story starts, for those of you that know it, bear with me, but it starts with God effectively talking to Satan and saying, look at Job, what an amazing man he is. Look at his character. Look how he has all of his values in the right place. And Satan challenges God and says, well, basically, Job is like this because you have a hedge around him, Bible term, hedge around him. You've protected him and blessed him. This is the reason why Job acts the way he does. Let me challenge him and we'll really see. The modern day translation of this is the Mike Tyson phrase, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. If I asked you what your foundation is, have you considered your foundation? Probably not. Like, we're mostly living life and we're doing our thing. We're focused on our jobs. We're focused on our families, and all those things are super important. Few people have had their foundation tested, and that's generally a good thing. I had my foundation tested in a very unique way, with a unique health experience I will tell you about, and that's the reason I'm compelled to be here to share the story with you today. My goal today, the reason why I was excited, is for you to hear this story and to leave here and really consider the foundation that your life is built on. Let me give you a little bit of background before I get to the core of the story. Through God's grace, I've lived a very blessed life. At our firstborn's wedding, I gave the best father of the bride speech I've given. I was also the only father of the bride speech I've given so far, and I started the speech by saying I've made three really important choices in life. Jesus, my wife, and my parents. Parental selection is not really a skill, but I like to claim it as a skill of mine. I was blessed with amazing parents. My mother is here. My father is in heaven today. But blessed to grow up in a home that was a remarkable home. The pictures I have of home, I only remember the good things, Mom. But the pictures I have of the home that I grew up in, the two of them sitting in our yellow dining room reading the Bible together, leading Monday night Bible studies, my dad leading Thursday morning Bible study at work. I met somebody today who was in one of those Bible studies. A remarkable home that I grew up in, one of my great choices, the parents I had. I married my high school sweetheart. We started dating. She's obviously here and her parents are here, but we started dating when we were 14 and 15. 33 years later, we have three wildly successful children. In our definition, successful children is children whose character is strong and their life is based on Christ. And that's success for us. They're successful in ways of the world as well, but to us, that's what success is with our children. I raced through college as quick as I could. I didn't really love going to class. I spent 3 years-ish at Wheaton College, mostly playing soccer. We made it to a Final Four, Division III when I was at Wheaton. I got an MBA at Case at night here in town, and my recurring nightmare that recurs to this day is that I can't find the bookstore and I can't find the room where the exam is. And while it's a nightmare, it's not too far from the truth. But that was not an example for my children. I can tell these stories now that they're basically done with college. 20 years ago, I was involved in helping start Cleveland Research Company here in town, also another low-profile enterprise. About 160 people worked at this company. My partner and I spent about a year planning starting a different business and a better business based on some very serious values and principles that we wanted to stand on. We took a year planning this business. On a Friday night, we walked across the street, gave a presentation on the 6th floor, and said, this is the business we want to build. Apparently, it was a good presentation. 40 people resigned over the weekend, and we started Cleveland Research Company, and that was 20 years ago. Today, there's 130 people. We've had roughly 5 people leave in the last 3 years. It's a firm with uniquely low turnover and exceptional culture. We're basically a consulting firm to the largest hedge funds and mutual funds and companies in the U.S. a couple times a month, the Fortune 100 company's stock will move based on something we've published. And so it's a pretty big and strong voice from a group of exceptional people. That's what I do for a living. I consider myself a uniquely healthy person. I haven't had red meat since I last had a burger at Skyway in 1988. It was good. I remember that, but I didn't have to go back. I've never had a drop of alcohol. My best friend is here today. That was a pledge we made when we were young that we wouldn't and haven't. And that's okay. But that's part of being uniquely healthy. 360 plus days a year, pretty much my whole life I've exercised. In 2015, I started riding a bicycle. A couple friends are here today who got me into this bicycle. Story started good. You'll hear how the story ended. But my knees had basically been shot from all of my athletic endeavors, and all I was left to do was ride a bicycle. Audrey referenced it a little bit. So for the next 5 years, I rode my bike 15,000 miles each year in those 5 years, which is apparently a lot. My wife reminded me. COVID showed up, and I had 2 knee replacements during the cover of COVID, and that knocked me back to about 12,000 miles a year. And that was my cycling career. I traveled about 120,000 miles on a bicycle over 9 years. When you do the math, 15,000 miles, 365 days, it's 40 miles a day, every day. I had thought I had checked all the boxes for memorable experiences on a bicycle. I was asked earlier, rode a lot of Tour de France routes in France and Italy and Spain, some epic rides up Pikes Peak in Colorado to 14,000 feet, Costa Rica, rode up a volcano 10,000 feet in Hawaii. And so I had done a number of amazing things on a bicycle. I thought I had done them all, and I'll tell you in a minute. There's a lot of verses in Scripture about the temporary nature of life. And like most people, when you hear about the temporary nature of life, every day's a gift. We're not going to live forever. Perhaps like you, I would nod my head and say, yeah, that's probably true, but I didn't dwell on it much. And I think that's okay. Luke 12, there's a parable. The parable starts with 2 brothers arguing about their inheritance from their father. The parable then pivots, and Jesus tells a parable about a farmer with first world problems. And what this means is a farmer who's got a huge crop, and as he's watching this crop come in, he says, I don't have big enough barns for this crop. What a problem I have. What am I going to do with this crop? I need more barns for this crop. He's also struggling with what to do with his retirement. Where am I going to go with this retirement? And so he's thinking about the fruits of his labor. He's worked so hard for this huge harvest. Where am I going to store this? What am I going to do with retirement? Probably responsible planning type things of somebody who's successful in the farming business. There's an abrupt turn to the story. The story turns with a farmer then dying that very night. And there's a parable in the Bible for a reason. I felt like this never applied to me. I would read one of these stories like many in the Bible and thinking like, I'll be okay. That doesn't really apply to me. I'll focus on a big harvest and bigger barns and my inheritance like most normal people. July 31st, 2024, so this is about 18 months ago, I left at 4:50 in the morning for my daily bike ride, the Wednesday loop. On Monday, I was on my own. On Tuesday, I was by myself. And on Wednesday morning, I was by myself. Up the driveway, take a right. I go down in the valley in Akron. I come up Ira Road, and I come back down Hametown Road. And at the bottom of Hametown is a stop sign. And then I take a right turn, and I go the last 200 yards to my house. The story I don't remember, my Garmin tells a chunk of the story that my heart rate coming down this hill I coasted on Hametown, 117, 120, 150, 154, 153, 153, 0. And zero, proper response, in case you need feedback. Zero, not a great number. And 4 days later, I woke up in the hospital. And unbeknownst to me, I wake up in the hospital, and I've watched the video a number of times. I watched it again this week. And Claudia, my daughter, is explaining to me as I woke up what happened. And my response to her is like, is this a true story? And my other response is like, I probably was in heaven. And so the story goes like this. Bridget, properly seated in the front row here today, lives up the street. Bridget, on a Wednesday morning, driving her way to work, had recently gone through CPR training. She's a nurse. But as she was coming down Hametown Road, the hill that I had coasted down, I saw a car stopped, a man standing there smoking, and then noticed some fella flopped over in the middle of the road. And so Bridget, responsible as she is, stopped her car, barged past the guy smoking the cigarette, and started to give me CPR there on the road. found me, as she describes, gray and cold and no pulse, laying there in the road. World-class CPR. I ended up with broken ribs, which is a small price to pay for me being here today. I thank Bridget for that. The other co-star of the show, the Bath Fire Department, I cooked a nice meal for. They came and assisted in saving my life. When we cooked a meal for them, I asked them, I do research, so I'm always asking questions. And I said, so, your history of these things, like, what's your record? Like, how's it gone? I'm a numbers guy as well. And they said, you're the first guy we ever survived off of being dead on the side of the road. The police left the scene, again, 200 yards from my house, went up the hill, pulled down the hill in front of my house. And my wife, 6:30 on a Wednesday morning, is letting the dogs out. A policeman comes down the driveway and rushes to my wife and says, your husband's been in an accident. You need to get to the ER. And my wife asks, is he alive? And the policeman says, you need to get to the ER, and doesn't answer the question. Again, not the Wednesday morning start she expected. She drove with my daughter Camille to the ER a couple miles away, found me there, hooked up the machines, unconscious, and unbeknownst to her what kind of condition I was in. Not good condition, that was clear. Stayed there for a small period of time and then got life-flighted in a helicopter from there to Akron General Hospital. For 4 days, I was effectively in a coma. And it was unclear, was I ever going to wake up? And if I did wake up, 9 minutes with no oxygen in my brain, what kind of shape was I going to be in? A lot of uncertainty. I learned what happened is I effectively died from VTAC, which I didn't know what was. Most people don't. But VTAC is when your heart turns off. If you think of when the electricity goes off in your house and everything is quiet just like that, this is what happened to me. It all turned off. My heart went to zero. The blood stops pumping, and that's the end. And so for 9 minutes, that's where I was. The movies and the things you see on TV of the pain and the bright light and the struggle and, let me get in there. I'm just at zero for 9 minutes. And that was what happened on that day. For many, this would be an experience that would test your foundation, clearly. My family in the hospital, amazing pictures of people who were with my family over those 4 days, uncertainty, am I going to wake up and what would I be if I would wake up? People who visited them over those days saw their faith sustain them. And what that means in terms of sustaining them is the confidence that if I never woke up, I would be in heaven. And so sad for the situation, but also confident that I would end up in heaven. The faith sustaining them also is their trust in God is foundational. And that means the God who created earth sent his son to die for us, had a plan. It was me either waking up on earth or waking in heaven. And that was the plan that they trusted in. Again, their foundation tested within that and sustained them. My kids kept a log of things that I said when I was in the hospital. Proudly, most of them are largely appropriate. There's a few that are right on the edge and entertaining. Someday I may share some of those. But one of the quotes in that was, I know that God has a plan and I don't particularly like this plan, which is, a pretty reasonable thing to say. And at that point, I very much meant it. And it's interesting as I prepared for this talk, over the last 18 months, I felt that way. And now I feel like, I'm in this room for that reason. And so I think that God's plan makes sense. I think there's a reason why I went through this. And I've never called it an accident once. We never know exactly what to call it. It's a health experience. But I don't think it was an accident. I think it was God intentionally had me go through this. And I'm learning more and more every day what that's about. I'll never be healed or recovered from this. I learned I have a scar in my heart. I took a genetic test where they said I have a genetic abnormality of unknown significance. I obviously corrected them to say, I'm familiar with the significance of this abnormality. It's not unknown. It's pretty clear. They installed a device in my side before they let me out of the hospital, August 3rd. And they said, this will protect you. 2 weeks later, I was on a bike, a Peloton in Virginia, moving our daughter into law school. And I fell off the bike and it zapped me 3 times and brought me back to life. And so I live every day with that. So the Bath Fire Department is one for life, and the device for me is one for one. And so I am appreciative of that. I've had one epic surgery at the Cleveland Clinic to attempt to heal me. I take 6 pills a day. I have a doctor interaction once a month. And people ask, like, how are you? Are you okay now? And I say, again, I'm analytical, so forgive me. I'm like 92% good. And I think that's pretty accurate. And so I do think God has me where he does now, where 4 or 5 times a week I feel my heart race and I wonder, like, is this it? And that requires that I trust in God. And again, I don't say this was a mistake. I say this was by design and intentional. The experience is still surreal and not at all believable to me. My mom stenciled in yellow on the mirror growing up. I quoted it to somebody earlier today, the will to win is the will to prepare. And so my whole life has been meticulously planned, meticulously laid out. Every bit of what I do is like very thoughtfully put together. In the hospital, there's another video, marginally not proud moment of, I lived a life of health and here's where I am. Again, all of the healthy things I've done, I'm not the guy who's supposed to have a heart problem. And I did. It's still hard to believe. And here I am. I've written some would call it a journal, but I'm not that comfortable to say I journal. And so it's a book to me that seems a little more manly. I'm okay with journaling, but I'm not for me exactly. It's okay though. And again, I'm a bit of a lower profile person. And so people said, like, could I see your book? And I don't know that it'll ever make it out of the computer. The working title of the book is Learnings from My Post-Death Experience. I thought I would share some of those with you today. It's better to hear the book than to live the story, most likely. And so this is the better path. The first section of the book centers on how I've spent my time. And as I thoughtfully look back on my life, there's 2 main areas that stood out as highlights. Had a lot of time, a lot of bed rest, a lot of not being able to drive a car, a lot of doing nothing post this experience. And so as I reflected and reflected and reflected on the highlights of my life, and it wasn't to repent, it was just to say, like, how have I lived my life? What have I done with my time? By the time I was done, what endured and made the 2 highlight list. One was the time I've invested in others, especially investing in them to make them consider Christ or encourage them to consider Christ. And then the second was meaningful time that I spent with my family. So a lot of things that are not on the highlight list. Helping build Cleveland Research Company is a great accomplishment. It's not on the list. We have as Audrey mentioned, a very fun hobby farm in Bath, Ohio that I spend a ton of hours on. It's a blast and fantastic and fun, not on the list. We're spending time creating a second home in Naples for our family and for our friends, not on the list. All these are good things, and life is full of a lot of good things, but the things that really matter are those first 2. You may remember in the movie Gladiator, Russell Crowe says, what we do in life echoes for eternity. And it's a pretty powerful line. As I look back on my life, the list wasn't as long as I hoped on what really would echo for eternity. And I think that God made everything for our enjoyment, Scripture says. But what really echoes for eternity is what I was encouraged by. I also felt, in my defense, thought I had more than 54 years, and that was a learning. So well-known line at the end of Saving Private Ryan. Tom Hanks and his team have spent their life saving Private Ryan. Spoiler alert, I assume you've seen it by now. And if you're not, that's okay. But he his dying words to Private Ryan are, "Earn this." And the miracle of Bridget, as she walked in tonight, I said, we wouldn't be here were it not for Bridget. And I mean that and appreciate that immensely, how God worked through you. But the miracle of Bridget, the miracle of having a second life, it makes me question why. Like, there's people who have my experience, as the Bath Fire Department attested to, and they don't make it. Like, why did I make it? Like, why was I saved? Why is my brain not scrambled? It makes me question that. And I connect that with Saving Private Ryan, and it creates motivation for what I'm going to do with the second chapter in my life. My life verse comes from 1 Corinthians 15:10. It says, "By the grace of God, I am what I am, and his grace towards me was not in vain." It's a verse I used to have stenciled on one of my bicycles. His grace towards me was not in vain. My life is full of examples of, by the grace of God, I am what I am. The success I have in life is not from my own doing. It's from the grace of God that I was born to, like, the 2, no offense, best parents that you possibly could have, that I married, no offense, the best woman that anybody could possibly marry. My whole life is full of these amazing blessings, which is by the grace of God. And that's the second chapter of my life is also by the grace of God. And so as I think about where I'm going from now, and I reflect that the greatest grace of all was the gift of his son on the cross, that's the foundation of my life, and that's what I'm compelled to share with you today. The second section of my book centers on what I want to do more of. Every day is a gift. People say that. I don't know if it's on a coffee mug. It wouldn't be a great coffee mug, but every day is a gift. And you don't need my experience to know every day is a gift, but I know it very clearly every day is a gift. And I can be a bit of a reminder for that. I like mission statements. At our company, we've got an orange card that is the mission of the firm. 3 points on the orange card. It gets referred to probably every day. Every strategic decision is driven off of these 3 principles on this orange card. As I look at the second chapter of my life, my mission centers on doing things that are going to echo for eternity. And I'm making some changes in my life to make sure that I'm aligned with what that looks like. So let me now get to the point. That was a little bit of the point, but let me really get to the point. 18 months ago, I died, and by the grace of God, I was given more time. As I said earlier, friends said, like, if it can happen to that guy at 54, like, it can happen to anybody. And it's likely not going to happen to you the way that it happened to me, but the reality is that, like, that final day comes for all of us. And I can attest to that. I get 2 shots at it, but it comes for all of us. And I think that's important. I'm again convinced. I was asked today, are you nervous or anxious about this? And I am convinced the reason I was given a second chance was to be here to share this story with you and hopefully be impactful for your life. I wasn't given a second chance to enjoy and live life. It was to be purposeful and to hopefully God through me play a role in you thinking about this. So you can listen to my 2 points if you would. First of all, I would encourage you to examine the foundation that your life is built on. I talked about foundation a lot through this story, but think about the foundation. I'm 100% aware that every day is a gift. When I look back and consider what echoes for eternity, that part is something that's super important. For me, the foundation of my life is the best way to navigate life on earth. That relates to the trauma I experienced, to my place in eternity and living every day. And so for me, the foundation of life is sustained my family while I was in the hospital, sustains me today of this is what my foundation is built on, is on Christ. There's a wonderful hymn, Great is Thy Faithfulness. I'm not going to sing it for you, which you can all appreciate. But great is thy faithfulness speaks of strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. And that is the point of faithfulness. That is the importance of a foundation in God, is strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. Those are 2 pretty good things. I can attest to that. Second thing I want you to leave our time with is considering where you'll spend eternity. Again, I don't know how much longer I have. You don't either. Like the farmer, I spend a lot of time planting the crops and harvesting the crops and thinking about the future. And again, I think that's okay. That's the responsible thing. But eternity is out there. I think that as I ask people, like, have you considered your place in eternity? The first response is like, what's wrong with you? Like, what are we talking about here? Have I considered my place in eternity? They'd rather talk about something light and enjoyable. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at some point, you have to solve for eternity. When I push people, mostly the answer is like, yeah, I don't know, or, I hope, or I think, and not the great answers, but none of those are great answers. Sorry. I do have absolute certainty the next time that I wake up, I will wake up with my Savior in heaven. The Bible states really clearly when our time on earth is done, we'll stand in judgment. And at the gates of heaven, there's one question asked: why should I let you into heaven? The Bible is very clear. Romans 10 speaks to this very clear. It's not that complicated. If you believe in your heart and confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord, you'll be saved. If doing good things was enough, he wouldn't have sent his son to die on the cross for our sins. It's not that complicated, but it is a step. I'd be thrilled to connect with you to talk further about this offline. We're opening a part of the second chapter. We're opening a bakery in April. You may have read. We're super excited about baked goods and a cafe, and all this is wonderful. But the central focus of this cafe is to create a space for people to not only enjoy those things, but to connect and really to consider. I got a job at Cleveland Research for a while, but I look forward to connecting with people there and challenging people to really think about their foundation and their eternity. Again, I don't want to assume how the foundation of your life is playing out. I know how the foundation of my life is playing out, and that's why I'm compelled to share this with you. My second favorite book is a book by C.S. Lewis, Screwtape Letters. It's 80 years old, and it's as relevant today as it was 80 years ago. And Screwtape Letters is a story of Satan tempting man on earth. And the temptation is very interesting. The temptation is about, how do I distract man? And it talks about little distractions a game of cards would do. In the modern day, a cell phone would do. Our life is full of distractions. I'm compelled to have this talk with you. You've all listened very closely, and you will have distractions the minute that you walk out of this room. And that's how Satan works. My prayer in advance of today, my prayer today is that you can overcome those real efforts to distract and really evaluate your foundation and your eternity. That's all I have. Thank you.